So we lengthen up, pull your belly button to the spine, just gently tucking your tailbone under, shoulders down your back pockets. Remember that space between your ear and your shoulders. Micro bend in the knees, always hip width apart unless I tell you otherwise. So we'll just start with some arm circles, lengthening your arms up to the ceiling and behind you. Don't have the band too tight. The tension of the band just helps you squeeze your shoulder blades together. Only if you want to, you can come up onto your tiptoes, squeezing your shoulder blades together, opening up your chest. Up onto my tiptoes, soles to my feet. Or you might want to stay on your tiptoes, really challenging your balance. Open up your chest. So I don't have the band too tight there. Let's just do one more. Lengthening our arms behind us, squeezing your shoulder blades together, interlace your fingers behind your back, squeeze your palms together, lengthen your arms down your back. I'm bringing my hands over to the right as I'm tilting my head to the right. So I'm feeling a nice deep stretch in the muscles in my neck, being pulled by a piece of string. Can you see my hands resting on my hip? They're clasped together. Back center, squeeze your palms together, lengthen your arms down your back, and squeeze your palms together, and you're bringing your palms to your left hip and tilt over to the left. Lengthen, so feel a nice deep stretch. Being pulled by a piece of string. And back to center. Just shake it out, and we're going to roll down. So if you hold on to the band, Pilates stance, gluing your heels together. You're going to hold on to your hips, lengthen forward, micro bend in the knees. I'm being pulled by a piece of string. So I'm being pulled by a piece of string from the crown of the head, sticking out my bottom, so I feel a deep stretch in my glutes and my hamstrings. You can hold on to your thighs when we round and curl and start rolling down. For some of you, keep on holding on to your thighs, keeping that straight back if you've got lumbar spine issues. Now, if you can't hold on to the floor, just rest on your ball or block as we lengthen out to the right, up to the ceiling, your range of motion. Don't twist your hips. Keep your hips set in stone, rotation of your upper spine, and lengthen back to center and out to the left or up to the ceiling, pushing into your heels, tailbone up to the ceiling, rotation of my upper spine, hip set in stone. And lengthen back to center. Let the top of your body hang, micro bend in the knees. Really let the top of your body hang, scoop your pelvis. I'm really pulling my belly button to the spine. Can you see I'm C-curve my spine as I restack my spine one vertebra at a time and up into mountain. The closer your ankles are together, the more you're going to challenge your balance. So if you want to glue your ankles together, you can, and you can come up on your tiptoes. Prayer your hands together, arms in line with your ears. Back into mountain, shoulders down your back pockets. Prayer. Come down to the soles of your feet if you can, glue your ankles together as we lengthen over to the left. Sticking out, squeeze your glutes, pull your belly button to the spine, protect the lumbar spine and lengthen. We're going to pull the band apart. Holding that stretch, you can feel your stretch in your waist and your hips, but you're strengthening a nice waist trimmer and lengthen back to center, over to the right. I'm eating my band here and pull the band apart. Sticking out the hips, squeeze the glutes, pull your belly button to the spine and lengthen back center. One more either side. So really deep stretch of the hips and the waist and holding that stretch, especially pulling the band. You're really trimming that waist, toning it up. Prayer, squeeze glutes, pull your belly button back to center and over to the right. Pulling the band apart. And back to center. Squeeze the glutes and back to center. You're going to bring just circle your shoulders, arms right and T. Now you're going to open and close your arms, taking on tension of the band. My hands are in line with my shoulders. Now you step your left foot forward. Take some pressure out that big toe, or you might want to come onto your float up your knee. Opening and closing that band. If you want to progress, you lengthen out your leg. Opening and closing. You can have that band as slack, as tight as you want. Really challenging our balance, really lengthen and lift that leg as high as you can go so you can really feel it in the quads. And let's swap over. Right foot forward, opening and closing, squeezing the shoulder blades together. You might want to float up your knee or lengthen out the leg. Doesn't matter if your leg is down here, but you want to feel it in your quads, you're balancing. I feel that in my quads on both legs. Opening up the chest, squeezing the shoulder blades together. Let's just do one more. Don't wobble like me. Squeezing the shoulder blades together and back to center and just shake it out. We're going to do one more roll down, Pilates stance if you can. Gluing your heels together, hold on to your hips, hinge forward. Being pulled by a piece of string from the crown of the head. Micro bend in the knees. Length, so I'm a cracker, so I can really feel the deep stretch in my glutes and my hamstrings. Hold on to your thighs, keep it straight back, those with lumbar spine issues, and the rest of us rounding in curling. Try to touch the floor. If you cannot touch the floor, hold on to your ball or a little block. As we lengthen out to the right, rotation of your upper spine only. See if your head can follow your hands, and lengthen, lengthen, lengthen back to center. Out to the left, or up to the ceiling. Hips are set in stone, is only the rotation of your torso. And lengthen, lengthen back to center. So I'm pushing into my heels, tailbone up to the ceiling. Let the top of your body hang. You can always hold on to your thighs to help you come up. If not, let the top of your body hang. Really seek out that spine. And back to center. We just dropped the band. We're going to do a lunge. So you come to the front of your mat and you step your right foot back. So make sure your knee is stacked over your ankle. Your lunge might be like this, pushing into your heels, stretching your hip flexor. It might be a bit deeper, but it's going to challenge your balance. Make sure your feet are hip width apart, not on a tight weight, but hip width apart. We're going to cross our arms. This is challenging your balance. Rotate to the right. Nose stays between your chest. Rotation of my upper spine only. And back to center. This challenges your balance. Now to the left. And back to center. Hold on to your hips. Left knee is stepped forward. Right arm lengthens up and over. Don't lean forward. Shoulders down your back pockets. Really stretching my hip flexor here. Stretching my waist, but challenging my balance and working the core. Lengthen back to center. Hold on to your thigh and step forward. Left foot steps back. Knee stays stacked over your ankle, so you might have a little shallow lunge. That's okay. Might be deeper. Always pushing into that heel, feeling you're opening up your hip flexors. Don't lean forward, cross your arms. I'm lengthening up, always lengthening up. Rotating to the right. Feeling now a deep stretch in that hip flexor. Back to center, over to the left. My nose stays in between my chest. I'm lengthening up, pulling my belly button to the spine. Back to center. Knee, right knee, step forward. Hold on to your hips. Left arm reaches up and over. Can you see I'm not leaning forward? I'm trying to keep my shoulders down my back pockets as I flex over to the side, feeling a deep stretch in my hip flexors. And lengthen back to center. Hold on to your thighs and step forward. And just shake it out. So you should feel just a little bit warmed up now, but we've been toning it at the same time. So we come down to the mat. We're going to do a couple of just regular spine stretches. Your feet are mat width apart. Flex your feet if you can. Lengthen up, nice straight back. So either have your arms lengthened up to the ceiling, arms in line with your ears. If that's too much on your lumbar spine, you're going to keep your hands in between your legs. So we're going to hinge forward, flex your feet. Hinging from the hip, the length comes from the hips. Keep those arms in line with your ears if you can. I'm being pulled by a piece of string from the crown of the head. Everyone's hands come down to the mat and I walk my hands forward, rounding and curling. Keep a nice straight back for those with lumbar spine issues. Really try to get the length from the hips so I can come forward by an extra few millimeters. And see curve that spine back to center. One more, you're either holding on in between your legs, you're resting your hands on the mat, or lengthening your arms up to the ceiling. Hinging forward, pulling my belly button to the spine, and the length comes from my hips, and I'm still being pulled by a piece of string. Flex those feet. Nice deep stretch in the back of the muscles in the back of the legs. And my spine. Everyone puts their hands on the mat, rounding and curling. I'm being pulled by a piece of string. Let's see if I can walk a little bit further. Length comes from the hips. And then C-curve the spine. Back to center. And just shake it out. Now we're doing a pelvic roll back now. So we've done something similar before. Some of you might want to put the ball nestled underneath your lumbar spine. I'm just going to show you the further the ball away is, we're going to hold on to our hamstrings and we're going to C-curve our spine and roll down to sort of your sweet spot. So the further the ball is away, the deeper you'll be able to go. Closer it is to your lumbar spine, just a little bit more support you get. But you don't have to have a ball. Now I'm holding on to my hamstrings. I'll take you through the progressions. You don't have to hold on to your hamstrings, so you can lengthen your arms out in front. So you choose the level that's good for you. Knees are hip width apart, we lengthen up. Then I round and curl my spine, holding on to my hamstrings. Level 2, lengthening your arms out in front. C-curving my spine, down to the ball, and back to center. Lengthen up. I'm going to round and curl my spine, holding on to my hamstrings. Rolling down to the ball, feeling that in my core, holding on to my hamstrings or lengthening your arms out in front. And back to center. Being pulled by a piece of string from the crown of the head. I'm rounding and curling my spine, holding on to my hamstrings. Some of you are rolling onto your ball for a little bit of support, holding on to those hamstrings as support as well. And back to center. Or some of you might be lengthening your arms out in front. The closer your feet are to your bottom, the harder it is. So if you're finding it really difficult, lengthen out your legs a little bit. Let's just do a couple more. Rounding and curling. Holding onto your hamstrings for support, rolling onto the ball, coming to that sweet spot. Or keeping your arms lengthened out in front. And lengthen up. Let's just part our legs for a little spine stretch. Lengthen your arms up to the ceiling, hinge forward. Some of you might have your hands on the mat to take pressure away from your lumbar spine. Being pulled by a piece of string, flex those feet if you can. Rest your hands on the mat, round and curl your spine. Now being pulled by a piece of string from the crown of the head. It's not about getting your nose on your knees, it's about lengthening forward. Then C-curve your spine back to center. So we're going to slowly roll down. We do this one every week, so you can either have assistance of the band, take the ball away, or level 1, 2, or 3. You don't want to look at your elbows at level 2 and 3. So relax your feet and legs. I'll start in level 2. So we lean back by an inch, straight back, and tuck in your pelvis. Relax the feet and legs. Pull the belly button to the spine, scoop the pelvis. I'm trying to really C-curve my spine, rounding and curling my spine, relaxing your feet. Remember, some of you can have assistance of the band. Slowly, slowly. Especially as you breathe out, really think about pulling the belly button to your spine. Remember to breathe. Slowly, slowly. Really feeling that in the core. I'm really pulling the belly button to my spine. Slowly roll down, hugging your knees to your chest and rocking from side to side. Crossing your ankles, pulling your knees apart if you can, rocking from side to side. Some of you might go a little bit further by lengthening your legs as close to sort of rolling onto your shoulders. It doesn't matter if you cannot get up that high. Part your legs, flex your feet, and slowly flex your feet to the ceiling or a little bit lower. Just classic rollover. Keep on hugging the left leg, lengthen the right leg away. Really relax the muscles, lengthen through the hip joint. Bring the left knee slightly out to the side, thigh skin to your rib cage. Nice deep hip flexor stretch. Hold on to your hamstring, calf muscle, or your ankle, and push into your heel. Start circling the ankle one way and then the other. Some of you might want to lengthen and lift your head and shoulders as well. for a little bit more core work. Don't do it if you get pressure in the neck. Nice deep stretch in the muscles in the back of my legs. Bend the knee, lengthen it away, bring up the right knee. Really relax the muscles, lengthen through the hip joint. Bring the right knee slightly out to the side. Thigh skins your rib cage. Keep on lengthening through the hip joint. Fill in a nice deep stretch in the hip flexors. Hold on to your hamstring, calf muscle your ankle. Push into your heel and start circling one way and then the other. Hugging that lengthened leg to the chest. Some of you might want to lengthen and lift your head and shoulders. Try to get that chest up to your ankle. Remember, this is a progression. Bend the right knee to tabletop. Tee your arms. If you get pressure on the shoulders, remember your hands can be closer to your thighs. And bring your knee, right knee, over to the left. Keep your shoulders glued to the mat. Look in the opposite direction if you can. Lengthen your arms where at T. You can put a little bit of pressure on your knee. Relax the foot and the legs. Squeeze the glutes. Pull the belly button to the spine. And let your core bring your knee back to center. And swap over. Left knee tabletop. Over to the right. Gluing your shoulders to the mat. Look in the opposite direction. You can put a little bit of pressure on your knee if you want to. And back to center. Really relax the muscles in the legs. So if you remove your block, we're just going to do a bridge. Now, only if you want to, you can have a resistance band over your hips. Just working out your glutes, just creating a little bit more tension. And it works the muscles in your arms. So it's up to you. So I'm going to put the band, I would put my band fairly tight over my hips. Feet close to my seat bones. This is a nice deep stretch, but firing up your glutes, working all the muscles in your body. So I'm pushing into my heels, squeezing my glutes, lengthening my knees away, taking on tension of the band. Only if you want to, you can come up onto tiptoes and lengthen your arms up to the ceiling or over your head. Then lengthen your knees and your arms away from each other. Don't drop the bottom or rock the hips. Your knees are hip width apart. Now imagine you've got droplets of water in between your hip bones and you're rolling down your droplets of water from the left to right hip as you tuck in your pelvis, C-curve your spine, and slowly roll down your vertebrae one at a time. Keep those arms lengthened over your head. And pull the band apart as you lengthen your arms back to center. I've got that band nice and tight around my hips, but you don't have to. Let's do another one. Push into your heels. Lengthen your knees away. Only if you want to, come onto your tiptoes. I'm taking on tension of the band. Nice perfect alignment from the knees to the hips to the shoulders, pulling the band apart. So I lengthen my arms up to the ceiling, over my head. So I'm tapping my pelvis, hips up to the ceiling. Droplets of water on my left hip to my right. As I slowly roll down my vertebrae one at a time. So we're really mobilizing the pelvis here. Really trying to hit every single vertebrae onto the mat as I roll the droplets of water from the left to the right hip. I'm still pulling the band apart and lengthen my arms over my head. Drop the band and then hug your knees to your chest and rock from side to side. Some of you might want to go a little bit further and do your classic rollover. So you just choose the level that's good for you. If you put the block underneath your head, we're going to just do a knee fold. So you're going to choose the arm position that's good for you, with or without weights. So this one looks harder than, it doesn't look, it looks quite simple, but if you get the technique right, you can really feel your deep core muscles are switching on. So I have hardly any pressure under the soles of my feet. I'm really thinking about pulling my belly button to the spine, melting my rib cage into the mat. And I'm going to lengthen one leg away. Can you see thighs are in alignment? Taking the pressure out of my foot, my left foot there. And back to center. Thighs are in alignment. Lengthen my left knee away. I'm literally on thin ice, taking the pressure out of my feet. Lengthen my leg away. And back to center. Choose the arm position that's good for you. You can lengthen your arms up to the ceiling. Relax the foot Relax the leg and lengthen through the hip joints. I can really feel that in my deep core muscles. Further aggression. Lengthen your arms over your head, with or without weight. Further, final progression, you interlace your fingers behind your head and you float up your head and shoulders. So if you're interlacing your fingers behind your head, I'm trying to get the bottom of my ribs to the top of my hips. So choose the arm position that's good for you. Let's just make one more either side and we're going to turn it into flex and point. Hardly any pressure under the soles of my feet. And back to center. Hugging your knees to your chest and then lengthening your legs up to the ceiling. So we're going to flex and point. So try to synchronize the movement with your breath. Take a breath in, so you breathe out. Point your toes. Breathe your toes in. Point your toes. Breathe your toes in. Now you just position your legs at a level point. That's good for you. So your legs might be lengthened up to the ceiling. You can do one leg at a time if you want to. Or you might be able to, your core might be strong enough to come to maybe 60 degrees, 45 degrees. And you're blowing your toes away and breathing your toes back to center. So that's what you've got to make sure you don't stick out your rib cage, pull that belly button to the spine. Swap over legs if you're doing one leg at a time. Blow my toes away, breathing them in. Just keep your legs to a point that's good for you. I'm going to see if I can lower mine a little bit to challenge my core a little bit more. You can always choose the arm position that's good for you. Pulling my belly button to the spine. Melting my rib cage into the mat. Blow my toes away. Breathing them in. I'm getting a bit tired now, so I'm going to have my feet closer to the ceiling. Let's just do 3 more. Final one, breathe your toes in. And then hug your knees to your chest and rock from side to side. Some of you might do the roll over instead. So if you grab your ball, put the ball between your knees, squeeze the ball. Your arms are at T. I'm squeezing the ball, feeling that I'm using the muscles of my inner thighs, take the pressure out to the feet, melt the rib cage into the mat. I want you to see if you can lengthen your arms up to the ceiling as you squeeze the ball. As you squeeze the ball over to the left, try to keep those arms lengthened up to the ceiling. If it's a little bit too much, you can rest your hands on the mat and lengthen out the top leg, squeezing the ball. If it is too much to lengthen those arms up to the ceiling, rest your hands on the mat, squeeze the ball back to center and over to the right. Keep those arms lengthened up to the ceiling, work your core a lot more. And lengthen out the top leg, squeezing the ball. Bend the knee, squeeze the ball back to center, pulling the belly button to the spine, melting the rib cage into the mat, and squeezing the ball over to the left. Lengthening out my top leg. Keeping my shoulders glued to the mat if you can. Squeeze the ball back to center, over to the right, squeeze the ball. Lengthen the leg away, lengthen through the hip joint. Lengthen, lengthen, try to relax the foot. Bend the knee and squeeze, squeeze, squeeze the ball back to center. Then hug your knees to your chest and rock from side to side. We're going to do the one leg. Oh, sorry, we're doing the diamond leg lower. So hopefully you're all okay to have your knees up to tabletop. This can be done with one leg. So you're going to cross your ankles and pull your knees apart. I'm going to show you from this angle. So I'm bringing my knees up to tabletop. I'm crossing my ankles and pulling my knees apart, creating a diamond. Now you can do it with one leg, but it's really important that your knee is out to the side like this, as though you're crossing your ankles like that, pulling your knees apart. And it's called the diamond leg lower. And I've got a nice big diamond there. Remember, you can do it with one leg, And I'm lowering my lengthening out my legs to about 45 degrees. Just come to a point that's good for you. And back to center. Nice big fat diamond. I'm lengthening my legs out as far as they can go. Skinny diamond, you might be able to lengthen them out and get them closer to the mat. And fat diamond is really important. You cross your ankles and bring your knees out to the side, pulling them out to the side. So you can feel you're using your thighs, and when you lengthen out your legs, it comes around to your glutes. So I'm feeling I'm firing up my thighs and my glutes. Fat diamond, pulling my knees apart, crossing my ankles. Thin diamond, lengthening out my legs, feeling that in the core. Just come to a point that's good for you. Fat diamond, pulling my knees apart, my ankles are still crossed, lengthening out my legs as far as you can go. Some of you might come all the way to the mat. It's difficult. Choose the arm position that's good for you. Lengthening out, you might come out by a few inches. Fat diamond. And thinner diamond as you lengthen out your legs. Swap over legs for those doing one leg, but make sure you're in that position as though you're crossing your ankles. It's really important because I can really feel that in my thighs, wrapping around to my glutes. I'm progressing with my arm position. Remember that arm position is personal. You might choose to keep your hands on the mat, lengthened up to the ceiling, or over your head, or interlaced behind your head. You choose the level that's good to me. My thighs are on fire now, so I'm really thinking about crossing my ankles, pulling my knees apart. Let's just do a couple more. Come to the range of motion that's good for you. Fat diamond, you might come out just by 2 or 3 inches. So you can really feel that in your core and feel it in your thighs and your glutes. Final one. Hugging your knees to your chest and rocking from side to side. Some of you might want to just do a roll over. Just choose the levels that are good for you. And then full body stretch. Pulling your belly button to the spine, melting the rib cage into the mat. Lengthen, lengthen. We'll come straight over to the side. We're going to do our side. Our side is, it's a bit like the oyster, and it's called sideline knee crossover. We've done this one before. So you choose the arm position that's good for you. I'm in between that double glazing, one straight line. Pelvis always stays completely vertical. Now my top leg, can you see, it just rests on my thigh, somewhere on your thigh, whatever feels comfortable. So my arm is in front for stability. If you really find you're wobbling all over the place, can you see I've slightly bent my bottom leg? The aim is to have a nice straight leg. You're just resting your foot on your thigh. Head in your hands, lying on your arm, or you can come up to your elbow. You choose the level that's good for you. You might want to band around your thighs as I bring my knee down to the floor. And I open up my knees high as it can go. Can you see my foot is rested on my calf muscle? My pelvis doesn't move. I close my knee. Remember, you can have a band around your thighs. And I open up as wide as I can. Wide, wide, feeling that in my glutes. Pelvis doesn't move. I close. Trying to touch my knee onto the mat without disturbing my pelvis. And I open up a nice one straight line. The bottom of my leg. If you're wobbling, just slightly bend the bottom leg. And we're going to open and close. I can really feel that in my glutes. Open up as much as you can without disturbing your pelvis. Open up and close. Now, if you want to progress, you can just rest your hand on your hip or lengthen your arm up to the ceiling. Makes it much harder. Or you can lengthen your arm over your head. Really challenging. That's really challenging my waist now. Really challenging the core. Can feel that in the waist. I can feel it in the glutes. So we're opening and closing. That's even a bit too difficult for me. So I'm in between that double glazing. So open and close my knee. Open up as wide as you can go. Total stability. Glutes are really burning now. Open up as wide as you can go, and you're going to hold it Let's just do one more. Really relax that foot. All from the hip joint. The rules always apply. And back to center and just tap it out. We're going to go straight into bow and arrow today. We do the same exercise each week. You open up your bow and arrow with a band, a weight, or both, or nothing at all. We're increasing the range of motion of our leg. Everyone lies on the edge of their block. So my knees are bent in front as though I'm tied to a chair and I've been knocked over. So I'm in that chair position. Arms lengthened out in front. You're going to lengthen and lift your leg diagonally across at hip height. If you're feeling a bit tired, you can just keep that leg rested. Don't do anything with your leg. You want to work it hip height. That's not hip height. Resting your foot on the floor isn't hip height. So I lengthen through the joints, relaxing my foot. And I lengthen my top arm, long to my bottom. And my top hand comes across my arm, across my chest. And my head follows my hand and I open up my bow and arrow. I'm increasing the range of motion. My foot comes in front. I'm going to see if it comes a little bit higher. So I don't feel particularly flexible, but on my third one, oh, this is my bad arm where I have my injection. Swing the leg behind you, so you're sweeping your leg across the table. Head follows my hand. Oh, I just did open book. Sorry, it's bow and arrow. And I close my book. Lengthen, lengthen, swinging your leg behind you. So my top arm lengthens longer than my bottom. My hand comes across my arm, across my chest. Head follows my hand. I'm increasing. My range of motion is so much bigger now. That's amazing. Head follows my hand. Sweep the leg across the table. Pull that belly button to the spine. Lengthen, lengthen, open up the hip flexor, feeling that in the glutes. And then bend the knee and just pat it out. We're going to come back into supine. We're going to do another version of the bridge. And today we're going to lengthen out one leg. I'm going to take you through the progressions. Only if you want to, you can have that loop band around your hips, or maybe you want some weights in your hands. I'm going to show you first of all. We're lengthening out, obviously slow and controlled either leg. Lengthen your arms up to the ceiling over your head. So we've done this before, but obviously slow and controlled. The progression will be lengthen the leg out up to the ceiling, tabletop, and back down to the mat. So either level one, lengthening out your leg, level two, up to the ceiling, bending your knee, and back to center. So you choose the level that's good for you. If it's far too difficult, you do 4 steps, 2 on either foot if it's too difficult. So I've got my resistance band. You don't have to have any equipment at all. And I'm pushing into my heels. Remove your block, don't forget. Lengthen your knees away. Only if you want to, you can come up onto your tiptoes. You're lengthening out one leg, slow and controlled, thighs are in alignment. And back to center. Lengthen out the other leg, thighs in alignment, not up here, thighs are in alignment. Progression, then your leg lengthens up to the ceiling, tabletop, and back down to the mat. Choose the level that's good for you. Lengthening your arms up to the ceiling, maybe over your head. Lengthen out one leg, just do 4 steps. If it's too much, don't drop the bottom or rock the hips. Lengthen out your leg. Progression. Then tuck in your pelvis, C-curve your spine as we slowly roll down one vertebra at a time. Really scoop in my pelvis. Lengthen your arms back to center and start your bridge again. Or some of you might be doing the crunch. Lengthening your arms out to the side or holding onto your hamstrings for support. Don't stick out the chest, nice straight back, protect that lumbar spine. Teaser. Some of you might want to try and lengthen those arms up to the ceiling. Don't lengthen my arms out to the side or hold on to those hamstrings. And we slowly, slowly, slowly roll down, balancing a tray of drinks on those shins. We do one more bridge. Feet close to my seat bones, squeezing my glutes. Lengthening the knees away, taking on tension of the band only if you want to. And I lengthen away with one leg, thighs in alignment, not up here. Lengthen away the other leg. Some of you might be progressing. Lengthen the arms up to the ceiling or over your head. Lengthening the knees and arms away from each other. Lengthen out the leg. If this is too much at this position, just do your full steps. Then tucking in your pelvis. Keep those arms lengthened over your head. And lengthen your arms back to center. Just finish off your final bridge. Or just do your last boat. Stick out your chest because you want a nice straight back to protect your lumbar spine. Last teaser, you might be holding on to your hamstrings. Boat, and slowly, slowly, slowly roll down. Hugging your knees to your chest and rocking from side to side. Pulling those knees apart, crossing your ankles if you can. And full body stretch. Melt the rib cage into the mat. Pull the belly button into the spine and lengthen your toes and fingers away from each other. When you're ready, we're going to roll to the other side. Do it nice and slowly. Slowly, slowly breathing. We're going to go straight into our sideline knee crossover. So I've got a band around my thighs this time. So I'm in between double glazing, one straight line, my arms in front of me for stability. So I'm going to bend my top knee. And can you see my top foot just rests on my thigh? Pelvis is in alignment. So my pelvis is completely vertical. Now if you find you're still wobbling, can you see I've just bent my bottom leg slightly, but I'm still resting my foot on my calf muscle. The aim is a nice straight leg. And I'm closing my knee, trying to touch it onto the floor without disturbing my pelvis. It stays completely vertical. And I'm opening up my knee as much as I can. Really feel that in the glutes. So I'm opening and closing my knee. Relax that foot, all from the hip joint. That's really firing up my glutes there. If you find you're wobbling all over the place, don't forget you can slightly bend the bottom leg. We're opening and closing. Open up as much as you can, holding it for a few seconds, feeling that in the glutes. Always being pulled by a piece of string from the crown of the head. Shoulders down your back pockets. See that foot is resting on my calf muscle there. Now if you want to progress, I feel a bit wobbly this side, you can either hold your hand on your thigh, but don't disturb your pelvis. Your pelvis stays completely vertical. Or you can lengthen your arm up to the ceiling. For me, this is really, I can see you're all lengthening your arms up to the ceiling. Gosh, I find this actually really difficult. Or you can lengthen your arm over your head. Open up as much as you can without disturbing your pelvis. It stays vertical, so I'm really opening, really firing up the glutes there. I can really feel that in my waist, especially I've taken my hand off the mat for support. In order to stay completely stable, really working my deep core muscles. Let's just do a couple more. Opening up, really feeling that in the glutes there, feeling that in the deep core muscles. One more. Open up, hold, back to center and just pass it out. We go straight into our open book. No bow and arrow. Remember, your head needs to stay rested on the edge of the block. Don't float up your neck. You've got to up your head, you strain your neck. Bend your knees in front as though you've been tied to that chair and you've been knocked over. So my shins are in line with the edge of the mat. Arms are in front. Palm to palm, you lengthen and lift that top leg diagonally across, hip height. Or you can rest the foot if your glutes are a bit fatigued. I lengthen the top arm longer than my bottom. And then I open up my bow and arrow, head follows my hand, and I'm increasing my range of motion. Leg comes in front, a little bit higher. So I don't feel very flexible at the moment, but after my third one, I'm so much more flexible. Swing the leg behind with control as as I close my book. Open up my bow and arrow. Leg comes in front. Increasing my range of motion. Keep that bottom leg in front as though you're sat on a chair. With control, swing the leg behind. Close the book. Hold for a couple of seconds. One more bow and arrow. My hands tight across my arm, tight across my chest. It's amazing, just with 3 bow and arrows, I'm so much more flexible. And lengthen back to center, feeling opening up the hip flexors, feeling it in the glutes, especially with that weight in the band. I can really feel it in the waist, so really trimming the waist. So then move and pat it out. We go straight into a prone. So those who find it difficult in prone, lying on their tummy, they're going to do their 4-point kneeling with or without a band or maybe a weight in your hands. And your one leg comes back and the opposite arm comes back. So we're doing something similar. We're doing the dart in prone. Then you do the other side. Holding for at least 2 to 3 seconds when you lengthen your arm and leg behind. The rest of us, we're going to do dart with or without a loop band around your ankles. And you might want weights in your hands, but I find this one hard enough. So we're lengthening our arms down my thigh, down your thighs. My feet are max width apart. You might want to put a loop band around your ankles. I look down in the mirror. You might want a little cushion underneath your pelvis if you get pressure in the lumbar spine. Or you might want a little flat cushion underneath your ribs if they're a little bit, if you feel they're a little bit tender. Arms lengthen down my thighs. My legs are max width apart. And first of all, we're going to squeeze our glutes, pull your belly button to the spine, push that pubic bone into the mat as you lengthen and lift your head and sternum, lengthening your arms down your thighs. I really feel like I've been pulled by a piece of string from the crown of the head. Lengthen those arms down the thighs. And back to center. Take a breath in as you breathe out. I'm pulling my bands apart. I lengthen and lift my head and sternum, lengthening my arms down my thighs. Feet squeezing my glutes. And back to center. Now, if you want to progress, I lengthen and lift my head and sternum, and I lengthen and lift my arms. This is called dart. Look down in the mirror, don't look in front. Hold on to that little orange behind, underneath your chin. So I lengthen and lift my head and sternum. This is the next level. Now lengthen and lift my arms as high as they can go. Pushing my palms together. So I feel that in my triceps. And back to center. If you want to go further, you incorporate the legs. So I lengthen and lift my head and sternum. Lengthen and lift my arms as high as they can go. Pushing my palms together. Lengthening and lift my legs. Pulling the band apart if you're wearing one. Remember, you can always come up and down levels. So I'm feeling a little bit fatigued, so I won't incorporate my legs. Lengthen and lift my head and sternum. Squeeze those glutes, lengthen and lift those arms, pushing the palms together. Some of you will have weights in your palms. Still feeling tired now, so I'm going to just lengthen my arms down my thighs as I lengthen my head and sternum only. Let's make it our final 2 either side. At the level, sorry, not either side, your final 2. At the level that's good for you. Always holding it up there for a couple of seconds. And back to center. Capital E your arms. And rock your hips from side to side. Just releasing any tension you hold in the lumbar spine. So our arms at capital E, my elbows are in line with my shoulders, my feet are mat width apart. So we're going to do cobra prep to lizard and full cobra. Always pulling my belly button to the spine, pushing my pubic bone into the mat so you're squeezing your glutes. And I roll the marble forward with my nose, elbows glued to the mat, chest out to the sun, shoulders down my back pockets. And I feel I'm pushing into my elbows, pull the belly button to the spine, little spinal extension, squeeze the glutes, protect that lumbar spine. And lengthen, lengthen, back to center. We'll turn it into cobra, lizard, sorry. Roll the marble forward, chest out to the sun, shoulders down the back pockets, pushing into those elbows. Now I'm pushing into my left hand, looking over my left shoulder, looking at my left foot. See if some of you can bend your right knee, opening the hip flexor, stretching the quads. I'm trying to try to get my thigh off the mat. And lengthen, lengthen back to center, lizard. We'll do the right side, roll the marble forward, chest out to the sun, shoulders down the back pockets, pushing into those elbows. Keep that little orange underneath your chin, push into my right hand. Straighten your right arm as you can, left elbow glued to the mat. Look over the right shoulder, really look at that right foot. Some of you might want to bend your left knee. Opening the hip flexor. Try to take the weight out my thigh. Really feeling a nice stretch of the hip flexor and back to center. See if you can, excuse me, push into both hands now. It doesn't matter if you can't get your elbows off the mat. Keep those feet mat width apart. Chest out to the sun, shoulders down the back pockets. Or some of you might have a deeper spinal extension by having your hands underneath your shoulders. Pelvis stays glued to the mat. And lengthen, lengthen, back to center. Everyone puts their hands underneath their shoulders and they come into 4-point kneeling, into a cat in a cow. So you're sticking out your bottom, lengthening your head forward, shoulders down your back pockets, creating space between your shoulders and your ears, and rounding and curling, pushing into your palms, squeezing your glutes, being pulled by a piece of string from the belly button to the spine. Some of you are going to float your knees 1 or 2 centimeters, no more, off the mat. Turbo cat, just incorporating a little bit of core work there. One more cow, rounding and curling, lengthening the head forward, look down in the mirror. And then rounding and curling, dipping your chin to your chest, squeezing your glutes, pushing into the palms. Some of you will float your knees, either by pushing into the top of your feet or tapping your toes under. This is a progression turbo cat, you don't have to do this. And back to 4-point kneeling. Prone, you can do exactly the same in prone. So you're going to lengthen the lift, opposite arm and leg, lengthen one arm down to the side and back to center. Then the other side. So that's what we're doing in 4-point kneeling. With or without a band, I'll show you without a band. Make sure you're stacked. Pull your belly button to the spine. So you're going to lengthen, make sure your hip width apart, your knees is really important. Lengthen opposite leg and arm away. Hold for 3, 2, 1. Then lengthen the arm all the way down to your thigh as you lengthen your leg out by 30, 45 degrees. The aim is shoulder height and hip height. Lengthen your arm back to center and your leg back to center. See if you can hold for 2 to 3 seconds. Back to center. Lengthen opposite leg and arm away from each other. Hold for at least 2 to 3. Lengthen the right arm all the way down to your thigh, so your left leg comes slightly out to the side. Lengthen back to center your leg and your arm, and back to center. You want to challenge yourself, make sure your shoulder, hip width apart. You incorporate the band. It doesn't matter if you just take your leg and arm off the mat by a couple of inches. The aim is shoulder height, hip height. I lengthen my arm all the way to my thigh, so I lengthen my leg out to the side. Lengthen back to center, and back down to the mat. So I lengthen. 3, 2, 1. Lengthen my arm all the way to my thigh. Lengthen my leg out to the side. Hold for at least 2 seconds, and lengthen back to center, with or without a band. Let's do a few more. This can be done at plank. I'll show you. Don't know if Susie's online. One leg out to the side. Just do one lever at a time. Arm. Have a slightly wider stance than hip width apart and shoulder width apart. So you're literally doing one leg at a time, one arm at a time. I wouldn't use bands if I were you. Just make it your final one either side. Hold. for 2. Lengthen down to the side for 2. When you finish your final one, just come into a child's pose. It's all about balancing that bowl of soup on the lumbar spine and getting absolute stability. Everyone's knees are mat width apart, gluing your big toes together and come into a child's pose. Lengthening your arms forward, pushing your chest into the mat. Resting your forehead on the mat if you can, and just rock from side to side just to get your breath back. Now walk your hands over to 10 o'clock. Right side hand sits on left, and I'm still walking those hands away, especially my right arm, as much as I can, sitting on my heels, pushing my chest into the mat, so I feel a lovely deep stretch down the right side. Walk your hands back to 12, lengthening the arms forward, pushing your chest into the mat, and then walk over to 2. Left hand sits on right, but really try to walk them away. So now, the further I walk that left arm away, the deeper the stretch down the left side, sitting on my heels. And back to centre. Then C-curve your spine, really squeeze the glutes, pull your belly button to the spine and C-curve that spine. Back to 4-point kneeling. And we do an open book. No, we won't, we do a thread the needle. With or without the band. Make sure you're sat, knees hip width apart, hands shoulder width apart. So I'm lengthening my right arm out to the side, with or without a band, or up to the ceiling. Your range of motion, don't stick out your hips. Hips need to stay stacked over your knees, and I'm squeezing a tennis ball between my shoulder blades. And lengthen, lengthen, back to centre, lengthen, lengthen. Right arm threads underneath left, and I'm pushing into my left hand. Really feel like I'm rotating my upper spine. Progression, the legs are progression. You can lengthen and lift, but keep those hips flat. Lengthen and lift as high as you can go as you lengthen out to the side. Some of you might want to try lengthening your left leg out to the side as you unthread your right arm out to the side, up to the ceiling. Keep that left leg nice and straight. Remember, you don't have to incorporate the leg at all. And back to centre. We'll do the other side. Make sure you're stacked. Lengthen the left arm out to the side. Make sure your hips are stacked over your knees. I was sticking out my hip a little bit there. Lengthen, lengthen, especially with the band. I can feel that in the shoulders and the waist. Left arm underneath right. Pushing into my right hand. So I really feel like I'm opening up my chest there, rotating my spine. Only if you want to lengthen and lift the right leg, keeping the hips flat, and swing that leg out to the side as you unthread out to the side, up to the ceiling. So your range of motion might be here, here, here. Doesn't matter, range of motion is personal. And lengthen, lengthen back to centre, bring your knee in. And then we all come to seated. We're going to slowly roll down. If you're feeling tired, just roll down any way you like, on the side, or you might just want to work the core a little bit more. Holding onto your band, level 1, 2, or 3. Just slowly, slowly. So we're always squeezing our glutes. In yoga, they tell you to spread out your glutes, but in Pilates, we're just going to always tuck our tailbone under. So we lean back by an inch, straight back, and tucking your pelvis. Scoop the pelvis. Relax the feet, relax the legs, pull the belly button to the spine. Let's continue to challenge our core. Breathe is really important, breathing, but especially as you breathe out, pull the belly button to the spine. Round and curl that spine. Teach your spine to be really flexible. I'm at my lumbar spine now. So I've got to really think about control when I roll down. Hug your knees to your chest and rock from side to side. Crossing your ankles, pulling your knees apart if you can. And rock from side to side, stretching out that lumbar spine. You grab your band and put the band underneath the arch of your right foot. And left leg can be bent, slightly extended or fully lengthened, depending on your flexibility. I can feel I'm opening the hip flexor there. Push into the heel, pull the band towards you, hugging the lengthened leg to the chest. Pushing into that heel, stretches that calf muscle a little bit more. Now really relax the leg, tee the left arm, hold on to the band with the right, and I lengthen my leg out to the side. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then lengthen the leg back to center. Try to relax the foot and leg, lengthen through the hip joint. The more you relax it, the more you'll use your core. Hand in the left hand to your right. Look in the opposite direction if you can. Shoulders stay glued to the mat. Still lengthening through that leg. And lengthen back to center. Feeling that in the glutes now. And try not to tug on the back down too much. Now feel that in the glutes. And we swap over. Right leg bent, slightly extended, fully extended, pushing into the heel. Hugging that lengthened leg to the chest. Pushing into that heel. Relax the foot and leg, tee the right arm and lengthen out to the side. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, and lengthen back to center. And the right hand to your left. Look in the opposite direction. Keep those shoulders glued to the mat. And lengthen back to center. Just drop the band, left ankle and right thigh, hugging your right knee to the chest and really relax that right foot. Really hug the knee to the chest so you can feel a nice deep stretch in the left glute. If you can, lengthen your legs up to the ceiling. We'll come to the other side. We'll get there any way you can. Right ankle, left thigh. Relax the left foot, hugging the knee to the chest. Feeling a nice deep stretch in the right glute. We'll just gently put our foot down, remove your block, put the ball underneath the head. We're just going to do a little spiral. A pencil shoots out from your nose. And you're going to start drawing a spiral on the ceiling. That gets bigger and bigger. Gently pushing into the ball and breathing. And when the spiral cannot get any bigger, you come in the opposite direction. And the spiral gets smaller and smaller. Until you come back to center. Just gently roll your head from left to right. Just let the ball deepen the stretch in the muscles in your neck. Really relax the neck and roll from left to right. Use that ball just to get a deeper stretch in the muscles in your neck. Don't forget to completely relax. And back to center. Just focus on your breath. When you're ready, if you gently roll to the side, get yourself to seated in your own time, breathing in your own time. I'm going to sit on my block, hugging my right knee to my chest. Start my right to your left, lengthening my left, your right away. Can you see I'm going to lengthen my arm up to the ceiling, your left, and lengthen over your head. Looking over my shoulder, some of you might want to push your elbow onto your knee, if you can. Either hold onto your knee or push your elbow into your knee. Rotation, lengthen up, and lengthen back to center. Do the other side, hugging the right knee to the chest, lengthening the left leg away. Hold onto your knee and lengthen your right arm up to the ceiling, up and over, looking over your right shoulder. I'm holding onto my knee, or some of you might want to push your elbow into your knee. Lengthen up. See if you can look over your shoulder a little bit more. and back to center. Just going to come to 4-point kneeling, tapping your toes under. Pilates stance if you can. You might want to hold on to your weights as we slowly roll up. Pilates stance. Micro bend in the knees. Let the top of your body hang. Squeeze your glutes. Pull that belly button to the spine. Really feel my deep core muscles are doing the work there. Taking the pressure out of my lumbar spine. You might want to drop the weights or hold on to them as we do our arm circles. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Open up your chest. Some of you will come onto your tiptoes. Soles your feet, or some of you might stay on your tiptoes, continuing to challenge your balance, really working your core, always lengthening. Just one more. Lengthen up. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. And back to center. And thank you.